How do we motivate our teams? How do we bring people into the industry? How do we attract talent? How do we keep talent?
Everyone wants to be extraordinary. Everyone's extraordinary can be different.
I found something that I could get excited about.
There's an intense enthusiasm. I pour my soul into it.
Doing things for the purpose of building.
Not only think outside of the box, but actually to live outside of the box.
Created a company, started in my garage, bootstrapped, $500 million in annual revenue.
I've had epic failure. I've had epic success. But if I have a try idea that I get excited about.
When people don't have context into what you're dealing with or what you're facing, and also what you see, it's very dangerous to outsource your intuition to another.
That's where we get to make direct impact on our job sites.
In the end, we have to focus on that speed to consumption so we can make our decisions.
Learning that skill of not backing down and not being afraid of those conversations.
It's all in your head. Like, the drill sergeants aren't there to make you quit. They're there to make you stronger.
Handle lows really well. They handle pressure really well. They are creative.
4 o'clock in the morning in excruciating pain definitely taught me limitations and perseverance.
What most people would interpret as stress and anxiety, I just interpret as the thrill behind it.
Yes. Photos worth 1,000 words, a video is worth 1,000 photos, an XR is worth 1,000 videos.
In my mind, people are decision makers. They are the creators of data, but they are also the consumers of data.
A digital transition within your company is one thing. A digital transition within the community is a whole different game.
A lot of potential for people to become passionate about all the things in reality capture.
Convert the point cloud data into a 3D printable model.
These things are going to change the world.
I saw it and I was like, I need to do that.
I was excited about it. I was like, this is amazing.
Saw this spinning box and it changed my entire world.
Tried on a HoloLens 1. I said spatial computing is it for me.
I didn't really want to do something that I could never be great at.
We don't do it because it looks pretty. We do it because we need information. We need data. We need measurements.
As an industry, very programmed to avoid failure at all costs.
To have patience with myself and trust in myself. If you've got a good attitude about it and you truly believe in yourself and believe in what you're doing, it's inevitable that it's going to work.
Our industry is one of the most important industries. We're not entertaining people. We're not only trying to make more money, we're literally building the world.
Welcome to RCN 2023. Let's hear a round of applause, everybody. Thank you very much. As I said earlier, my name is Eric Fontanez. I'll be your host and MC for this evening. When I say MC, that doesn't mean I'm going to rap on stage for 3 days. Don't worry. I see this crowd. Well, no, I see my man right there. He's like, yo, drop some raps, man. Maybe. We'll see. We'll see after the happy hour. Speaking of happy hours, I saw a lot of faces there last night. Great to see you all again here, conscious. Well done. Reality capture. That's what we're here to talk about. We're here to talk about innovation. We're here to talk about technology. And I heard Matt earlier, he said, you guys are the experts. We're very happy to have you here. Give yourselves a round of applause, please, because you guys are the ones who are making this happen. Thank you very much. But with all that said, maybe we should get things going. We're going to start with our first panel. We have a murderer's row of geniuses to talk here today. We're going to be talking about company culture and mindset, empowering innovation. Please welcome Aaron Kahn, Todd Wayne, Salah Eckhart, Heidi Buck, Travis Fisher, Mark Marion, Bray Tucker, and of course, RCN's Matthew Bird. Round of applause, please.
All right. Thank you, Eric. All right. Hey, good morning again. It's been a long time. Great to see you again. Thank you guys for joining today on this wonderful panel. I think it's important to start our whole week off talking about the culture of innovation, the way that we go about adopting technologies. We all have struggles, and I've got a great group here. What I'd love to do is start with introductions. So let's go ahead and start down here. We'll introduce yourself and who you're with in your position, and we're gonna jump into some fun talks here.
All right. Hi, everybody. My name is Aaron Kahn. I'm the founder and senior consultant at my own firm, Aaron Kahn Consulting, where I support contractors as well as construction technology startups with creating and using solutions to make our projects more effective and efficient.
Awesome.
Hi, I'm Heidi Buck. I am with Amazon Web Services, a small company you've probably never heard of before. I've been there only a year and a half now. I run a spatial computing emerging tech prototyping group, and we support a lot of reality capture programs and services. Prior to that, I was 20 years as a Navy civilian running innovation programs for the Navy in computer vision and in spatial computing.
Awesome, thank you.
I'm Mark Marion. I'm the Chief Operating Officer for Allen & Company based in Orlando, Florida. We're a survey mapping geospatial firm. Got about 20 years of modeling and sim experience working for the DoD, and then transitioned into geospatial. Really bullish on computer vision, LiDAR, photogrammetry, and how we can apply those technologies for mapping applications. Been with Allen & Company for the last 5 years, really trying to push the envelope on what we can do and grow the workforce and grow the industry. Thanks for having me here.
Good morning. My name is Travis Fisher. I'm the director of VDC at Gilbane Building Company. We're a large construction manager with offices all across the nation. I personally sit out of Pennsylvania, is where I'm from. I've been in the industry almost 15 years, all within either architecture or the mechanical side of the industry.
And good morning, everyone. I'm Salla Eckhart. I'm the Vice President of Innovation at Oasis Services. We are owners rep construction management company based out of Seattle, but we serve across the United States. And my background is 20 plus years of industry disruption, architect by training, but then technologist by profession. So it's a pleasure to be here, truly an honor. Thank you, Matt.
Hello, everyone. I'm Bray Tucker, and super similar to Salla, I've also had 20 years in the industry as an architect, just being a general disruptor, but now run a technology consulting company, Tucker Tech Consulting, and we have a wide range of services that are mostly focused on strategic help, but we also help execute digital service work, and then also solve business problems for account receivables and kind of all of that other fun stuff no one likes to think about.
Good morning, everyone. My name's Todd Wynn. I'm the Chief Innovation Officer at Rogers O'Brien Construction out of Dallas, Texas. And my passion is to find a better way to build. We practice ourselves to be the premier builder of Texas. Super stoked to be here with you all.
Awesome. Thank you for the introductions. So I'm going to let everybody also know this is the first panel of the conference. I want to let you know how it's operating. Usually when we go to conferences, people they have direct questions that each person gets. And I really like to run everything organically. So all of these wonderful people and all the panels throughout the week, we don't have directed questions. And the reason I specifically do that is I think that there's more value to come from non-rehearsed material. I believe that for ourselves, for me speaking, for us as a panel. I think when you get people that have experience together and have organic conversation, it's off the cuff, it's not memorized or researched. That's what I'm going for. So also, just bear with us if that means there's any hiccups, there's any delays. That's just how we roll. So I'd love to start off and pose the question, and we can popcorn style, of when we're talking about company culture of innovation, what does that mean? What is the goal behind creating a company culture of innovation? Who and how do we get there?
I'm happy to take a stab.
Go for it.
So culture to me is something that you can think of almost like a chemical state in your company. And so if the chemistry is really good and reactive to change, then you can adopt new technologies kind of with speed. But that's something you have to curate. You have to curate that curiosity, you have to curate that interest, you have to curate that willingness to change and kind of rethink processes. And without that chemical state in your company culture, you're going to get the opposite. You're going to have really negative reactions. It's like, why are we doing this? You're going to get negative questions, negative kind of thinking-based perspectives. And that's problematic if you want to do anything. And so Sal and I were just exchanging war stories on that just before we got on stage, just about how you are either going to deal with the inevitable reaction that you're going to get because you know it's going to be negative, or how you're going to curate a positive one. And it takes a lot of work. It takes a lot of thinking.
I'll build on what Bray said, because I worked in a lot of companies, those that have been around for like 120 years and those that have been around for less. But overall, what I've realized is that the company culture needs to be built into the company DNA, and the top executive boards and the top leaders, they have a tremendous impact on, does it really happen in the company, or is it that they continue to do things as they've always done it, based on how it's been for the past 100 years, so to speak. And that either becomes the enabler or it becomes the inhibitor, that they can invest in hiring innovation teams and innovation leaders, etc. But then if those people are told that, need to learn our company culture or organizational culture, that's where you're cuffed right off the bat. And that's where you just become an expense for the company without really enabled to create the impact and the transformation that the company desperately needs. And from my past experience, I've had my previous employers call me a decade later that I've left the company and say that, yeah, we're now being merged to a different organization and they are now requiring what you are trying to get us to do, but we were actively pushing back on you and not listening, but now we are up against what you could have already created for us a decade ago. So for me, it's kind of like bittersweet, but from the organizational point of view, that's a decade of lost revenue. So that's why it's so important to put the transformation into the company DNA and make it the organization-wide culture.
I'll just add that, innovation, it's a big word, can be very ambiguous. So at RO, what we try to do is simplify things. Innovation to us is nothing more than just finding a better way. That's how we define it. And we've made it one of our core values, a better way. A better way to build, a better way to do a process, a better way to do a task. So when you start thinking of it that way at first, of just leveling the room with just creating a very simple, tangible definition of let's work together to find a better way. And I loved what Matt started with showing what 2 horses can output compared to 1. I think that where we get confused is we think that, well, I just got to practice being more innovative, or I got to really educate my company to be more innovative. Well, what you're kind of doing it wrong. And let me tell you why. Innovation is an outcome. It's an output. It's not an input. So what are the things that you can input, that you can practice, that result in innovation? For us, it's the realization that a learning culture creates an innovative culture. For instance, at RO, every single employee gets 2 free books every month. And we did audiobooks. The reason why was because we had all these builders that were driving across town to their projects, and we looked at it and said, how can we surround them with a learning environment? Because if you think about it, the most innovative companies in the world, Amazon, Apple, Google, they're the ones that learn the fastest. So what I would say is if you want to be more innovative, focus on the leading indicators, the lead factors, not the lagging. Focus on creating a learning environment around curiosity, around courage, around discovery. And then I promise you'll start seeing innovation occur within your firm.
So I'll tell a personal story. So I mentioned I've been 20 years prior to AWS with the Navy. So being within a government organization, working for the DoD, I've had the pleasure of seeing innovation both fail due to obvious red tape issues, and then also succeed. I've also consulted for startups on computer vision, so I've seen it from a small startup perspective. Now I'm at AWS and I've seen it from the giant company perspective. So this topic of innovation really fascinates me. But what I wanted to say is that during the pandemic, we all had a lot of time to sit and think. And so one of the things I was thinking about during the pandemic was, why is innovation so hard within the DoD? And so I read quite a bit of Harvard Business Review documents. I took some coursework on organizational innovation. And what I was seeing common to the coursework and to the Harvard Business Review docs was that to create this culture of innovation, you have to have strong buy-in from your leadership. And often the most successful organizations in innovation are often offshoot from the company. You know, it's the little kind of skunk works program off to the side of the company. And the reason why it's so successful is because they're left to their own devices, they're doing their own thing, they're learning at their own speed, they're going off in their own direction, but they still have the resources of the company. And I think that's the theme that I've been seeing across the DoD startups and now this big company I'm at, is that you have to have the resources and support behind you to do the innovation. You know, within the DoD, purchasing is so hard within the DoD. I'll mention that, you know, we always say it takes 120 days to buy anything in the DoD. So you've got a guy starting tomorrow, your developer, who needs a computer tomorrow. 120 days to buy his computer. You can't innovate on that timeline. It's just not going to work. But then you go to a startup and you might not have any resources at the startup. You're constantly, you know, delivering the next product or the next release. So they don't have time or they don't have money or whatever to spend on the innovation. So I think, you know, all different sizes of companies have all different problems tackling innovation, but it all stems from the same thing, having the freedom to go about innovation, having the resources to go about innovation, but then having the leadership support you in that regard.
I would also add on to that. So freedom, resources, leadership, community as well, especially on the field level. And my background is in operations as a project engineer, helping manage buildings. And that grassroots level of buy-in is absolutely essential. So you can have all the resources and leadership and buy-in, but if there's nobody to execute it and actually believe in that, you're going to kind of stall out. So to me, innovation really means community and building community within the organization. And it can be as simple as, you know, raise your hand if you care about this thing. Let's just meet up for a coffee and start talking about it. It can be that simple. So that basically plants a seed with those, I would call them innovation champions, that are going to be those boots on the ground that will be those hand raisers and basically say, okay, I'm interested, sign me up, let's try this out. And you start to see that positive feeling kind of spread throughout different teams, different organizations in your company, depending on the size, right? So to me, it's really about that people first approach. And we hear it all the time, people, process, technology. Start with people first has always been my experience with innovation culture.
Yeah, we're a service-based industry. We're pure survey and mapping. And talent's hard to come by, and our number one asset are our people. So we made a conscious decision a couple of years ago to really invest in the next generation and focus on training and workforce development. And it was a game changer for us because surveyors are hard to change. You know, they're very accustomed to SOP and doing things a certain way. And it was an evolution for our company to go from like a traditional mentality for how we're going to do business to start leveraging the technology and grooming the workforce to accept the technology and apply the technology. And it was not easy. And part of the mantra we had instilled that is if you do not like change, this is probably not a good company to work for because we're going to keep changing until we get it right. So I would say innovation, just part of that is change.
Well, I think both of you hit on it in terms of defining what innovation means, right? We talk about innovation at a high level, and it gets thrown around our industry by every single person. Other than AI, I would argue you hear the word innovation, you know, more than anything, and it's really defining what does innovation mean to you, right? If you're still in paper and pencil, well, Excel might be innovative to you, right? Versus go writing a check and buying a drone with LiDAR sensors on it, right? So innovation doesn't necessarily need to be the latest and greatest technology in a room full of technologists. We sometimes get blinded in our own faults of, well, let's just go buy this tool or technology, where sometimes innovation is just process, right? Changing what we're doing or what we have and just doing it differently to make it better, which is a great point. So I think really defining what innovation means to your company before just saying, well, my company needs to have an innovative culture. Well, what does that really mean?
Yeah.
Define what innovation means to you first as a business and what your business is trying to do. Then your culture can kind of follow along naturally as the people part of it really starts to come in.
One of the core skills I've found with that is listening as well and emotional intelligence. So it's kind of funny. A lot of times people think, oh, I have to be this tech expert to do innovation and all this stuff. Like, no, really, all you have to do is care and listen to what other people care about. And then you can connect what they care about, what their core values are, to something that will make their day better. And they'll be far more motivated to get involved, learn, kind of commit to this new change and new process. So
I like your comment, though, on that process change could be innovation. I think we have to remember that. We're not just here to talk about tech. It may be a big process change or a change in marketing or a change in training or a change in HR that is innovative. And a lot of what I like about AWS is that we have what are called mechanisms at AWS, and it's, this kind of this procedure for making certain things easy or easier, or the process by which we go about things. And I like that at AWS you're encouraged, if any process is complicated or it takes more than a few button clicks, or you have to go through more than a few approvals, like they encourage you, change it. Let's figure out how to change it fast. And I think that's what makes AWS and other companies so innovative, is that we're focused not only on high-tech stuff, but we're focused on making the processes and the business processes better and faster too.
I think that's like of paramount importance to just recognize like process change is your first step to doing anything remotely innovative, and that you're always revisiting process change. And I loved how you were mentioning, like, we're gonna keep changing until we get it right. The secret everyone should have in their back pocket is it's never gonna be right. It can always be better, it can always be faster. There's emerging technology coming out next year that nobody knows about yet that's just gonna totally change how you do everything. And if you don't have a process in place to revisit your processes and have a safe space for people to say, hey, this takes me 18 additional steps, the way that you just suggested. And I love the idea of listening. Like, you need to be there to hear that, to be like, okay, like let's look at that. That's not good. So yeah, process is it. It's everything. It's kind of your backbone of strategy, your backbone of innovation. It's how you're going to address it, how you're going to talk about it, and how you're going to constantly change it.
One thing we haven't mentioned, though, is failure. So is that your next question?
Well, it's not, but I was about to get there. I was going to say, we've talked a lot about like, what is it to our organizations, what it means. I'd love to hear some of the even current challenges many of you are focused on innovation within an organization or consulting with companies that want to innovate. So we got to roll with the punches here, right? Yeah. See, not rehearsed. So what are some of the challenges that we still see right now within our organizations? And when we look at things like failure, like, how do we address those? How do we treat those? Do we encourage it? Do we allow it? Do we let people know it's okay if you do? Like, don't go hide that you failed. Like, bring it to me and let's improve it. Like, what are some of the current struggles?
Yeah. Well, change in itself is a struggle, and we've discussed that, but this is a tough industry to innovate in, right? We all know what our margins are. They're razor thin. Everything's against us on trying new things. Let's go back to what we know works, because we're not willing to take that risk. But what's interesting is we understand that failures do occur in construction. We know it in safety. It's sad to say that. It's sad to say that 3 people will die today in the United States. I don't mean to bring the panel down, but the recognition of even looking at how we address failure in mitigating safety risk, we can actually learn from in construction to mitigate innovation risk. That's something we've been practicing. We call it creating capacity for failure to occur. What I mean by that is, in safety, when you have someone, God forbid, but they fall off the side of the building, their yo-yo catches them, right? Just in case failure occurred, we created capacity for failure to occur. If you're driving on the highway and you go outside the 2 lanes, you hit the rumble strips, right? You're failing. but you're failing safely. That is having the mindset of creating capacity for failure and really what I like to call learning to occur. So what we try to do is when we're trying something new, we work very closely, if it's on a project, with the project team. They have to be involved. Do not do this in an ivory tower. Do not do this alone. Get with, in our case, we get with the lead superintendent or the project manager. We look at the critical path of the schedule and say, we're not going to affect that. We're also not going to affect the quality. The main 4 pillars of the build, schedule, cost, quality, safety, we are not going to affect those. And we're going to create capacity for learnings, failure to occur. Because as we know, failure is the price of entry to innovation. I mean, we all know the Edison quote, but Edison didn't learn how to invent the light bulb through the continuous improvement of candle wax technology, right? He had to try something different. He had to take a risk with some courage. Sometimes you have to have that curiosity and you have to have the courage to dance alone when no one else is dancing. I think back when I first put a 360 camera on my hard hat. Nathan Wood, if y'all know of the CPC Coalition, he called me Tripod Todd. Ridiculed on social media. And it's because sometimes when you're doing something new, when you have a curiosity and a discovery that, hey, I believe that there's a better way here, you're going to have naysayers. You're going to have people saying that won't work. Hey, we don't have time for that. But you got to have the courage. You got to have the courage to try. And then you have to have that obsessed learning mindset to say, what am I going to learn from this? What am I going to learn? What am I going to try? And then what Aaron hit on, community. Creativity does not come from one. It comes from the diversity of perspective. If we all sat here and sketched up those monitors in front of us, every one of our pictures would look different. And that's the beauty of how creativity works. It's the combination of perspectives that surfaces true outputted innovation. We don't even know if it's innovative until we've tried it and done it. And then we look back and say, wow, Matt is so innovative. But not when he was first trying it. Matt's crazy. Matt's unsafe. He's risking the project. So the one thing I would say, and I'll wrap it up, is just create capacity for that. Like, get in touch with where the most important risks are, and then say, well, okay, critical path is on level A. We're going to go up to level B and we're going to try this. So that's something that's helped us a lot, is create capacity for failure to occur. Know that it's going to occur and plan for it.
As a small add-on to that, creating this capacity, something tangible, I think both on the builder side and on the tech provider side that would absolutely help that is have a sandbox ready, especially if you're a tech solution. Have a sandbox, have a demo site that the team can go in and play around with before they actually apply it to a real world scenario. That helps create those guardrails a little bit more.
I like that capacity idea as well, and combining it with the community. That where the industry tends to fail is that it over-engineers and over-conditions a lot of the processes. And when we talk about simplifying things, we are actually talking about dumbing things down. And that's where the failures start to accumulate and increases the risk that you were talking about. But then the community, as they see the risk, they start to walk away from the innovation and the change. And start making fun of the people that are doing different things and telling them why they are going to fail. And a good example from my past career was that when the Microsoft HoloLens prototypes came out, and it was a technology that was wearable computer, and it felt funny to be wearing one on your head. And there were not that many applications to it. So since there were no applications, I had to become developer for the HoloLens and then move on to VR technologies, etc. But what was common with people that were supposed to be supporting the innovation and re-engineering processes and introducing the new technologies were that people were telling me to my face that, this technology is not developed to do what you want it to do. And my response would be like, if it's not developed to do what I want it to do, how come I just made it do what I wanted to do? So it's like, how do we generate more of compassion and empathy to the developers and the change makers and the disruptors in the industry, and help them elevate and be fueled in re-engineering, simplifying processes, and pushing the envelope and pushing the boundaries rather than pulling them down just because they are the first ones to go at it. And sometimes it's not the most exciting looking person doing it, but they are doing it. So that's one of the points of failure, that we don't really support each other that much. We kind of look from the sidelines and wait for the failure.
I think I'll just build one little thing on that has really stuck with me for a while, is this quote of, we never have time to do it right, but we always make time to do it twice. And that's if you're doing it without any innovative practice, right? It's like, the thing that's so unique to me about the built world, all of our projects are different. You never have, like, even if you're doing big boxes, it's a big box in a different state with different rules and different crews. So every project has these moments where you're going to fail in an unpredictable way. And so I think when you're trying to really empower innovative thinkers to feel safe, I like to use that word a lot, you want them to feel safe to suggest ideas. And so maybe you come up with a new terminology for your business of how you address things not working. And so just changing the word from fail to not working, that creates this environment where you can now have a conversation of, well, why not? Why didn't it work? And so then you get to be more analytical, kind of more precise in how you're going to analyze this entire situation of like, okay, well, maybe our process doesn't quite fit this tool. What would work, and what Salah just said, what would work in this tool environment that now satisfies a new process? So that's what you really need. And if you're trying to innovate on the fly on projects, best of luck to you. That's super tough. Near impossible. And so you really do need those spaces where you're going to have a sandbox to simulate, and then a sandbox to simulate a new process. And then when you're ready and you feel proficient with that process, take it to a project and try it in the real world.
I think when you talk about failure, you know, one of the big things that sometimes, you know, I'll include myself in this is, you know, as someone that promotes innovation and technology, I can't oversell, right? You can't follow, if everyone's ever seen the Gartner hype cycle of where technologies truly are in terms of hype versus practicality. And we all know that AI is, you know, going to change the world, right? But it's not going to change the world tomorrow, right? It's coming, and we all know it's coming, but not overselling a technology or an innovation which causes that failure or the disbelief in something that's not truly going to work, which loses that buy-in, which drives your company culture, and all these things are tied together. So it's really getting those small wins, and how do you get those small wins? It's really getting the buy-in, the people that you're working with, and trying to at least, let's accomplish something tomorrow versus going from 0 to 100 in a month. Let's try to go from 0 to 10 tomorrow, at least make small wins, which will eventually change, because I see, you know, we have this new technology, it's so great, it's going to change everything that we do, and it's too much for people from a learning curve of the technology, from a process change, it's overwhelming, people don't buy in, and all of a sudden, that iPad is collecting dust in a superintendent's trailer, right? We've all been there. So I think we all in this room, as people that are proponents of technology and innovation, and we're probably all, you know, leaders at our companies, and probably all look to as bringing great ideas. And a lot of people think of innovation and technology as one and one, but sometimes I think we also need to look ourselves in the mirror and make sure that we're also not overselling the capabilities of what the technology is versus what each of our roles in our businesses need.
I had mentioned that I had read that some of the most successfully innovative groups were the spin-offs from the bigger organization. And I think that they are so successful because oftentimes they're not subjected to the same HR, goals, benefits, payouts that the larger org is subjected to. You know, when you're tied to the larger org's goals of you've got to sell so many units or, bring in so much revenue, you often can't be innovative because you don't have the support there or the free time there to concentrate on innovative ideas. And that's why if you can make your reward structure such that innovation is supported and then failure is okay, then people are rewarded and incentivized to think innovatively. But then I keep thinking about we're so busy in our jobs, you know. I hear oftentimes like, I don't have time to be innovative because I have so much to do. You know, I have to put out all of these fires. I think we also have to give people the space and just the quiet time. I always call it quiet time. If my boss is out there, I can't see him. It's too dark or light. I often want to tell him, I just need some quiet time to think. And so I came to this conference straight from vacation. And so I had quiet time on vacation to think about innovation. And I was like, oh, I'm so glad I got to think about certain things for a while. But we're just running from job to job so often. So anyway, I guess what I'm saying is that, you know, we need our incentivization to be such that we can do innovation and we can fail at it also.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, we have to slow down in order to speed up. It's like this slingshot, right? And so many businesses think that innovation is you buy the tool, you're doing things faster, you're more profitable. But we have to, as organizations, see we have to believe in the future of what it will do for us, then go through the hard work and the investment and the time and the stepping backward in order to get those things in place to get ahead. I'd love to hear a couple thoughts on, we've talked a lot kind of high level culture within business and really we're here also talking about a lot of specific technologies this week within the built environment, from scanners and robotics and drones. I'd love to hear a few thoughts on some of the current challenges, not just on innovation in general, like from a high level, but what are some of the specific challenges you're seeing around the technologies that your groups, are focused on?
I'll throw one out there. I think we've all heard it at this point, but unfortunately, too much tech. So there's a lot of everything out there. And I think one of the things that helps with that is being strategic about your tech stack and understanding why you're trying to solve the problem you're trying to solve and who is it affecting. So being really picky, quite honestly, about new solutions that you're pulling into your organization and then looking strategically at your overall tech stack to see where am I under optimized, and then pulling a little bit more out of your current solutions to optimize their effectiveness. And then last but not least, data integration. So there's a whole ton more I could probably say about data integrations, but kind of question the solutions that you have, the new ones that you're pulling in. Are they talking to each other? Are you getting synergies out of your data flows? So that can kind of help address that specific challenge with tech fatigue.
Yeah, this even relates back to the question before too of what are some of the big failures, but it's the enemy of a great idea is 5 good ideas. I mean, think about that. How many different initiatives are you trying to do right now? That's when I have someone come up to me and say, Todd, how are you all so innovative? We drive radical focus, ruthless prioritization. You have to look inward and say, okay, our company is different than your company and your company, and be obsessed with what is the answer to this question. If everything remained the same, what's the one thing that we could change that would have the largest impact? And then what you're going to do is you're going to say, what's this? But we can get that done, and we can also get this and this done too. And now you just made the mistake. When you're limiting focus to 1 or 2 great initiatives, you will see progress. So back to, we're smothered right now in app fatigue and solution fatigue. There's shiny new tools every single day. And these are great. We need these. But you've got to stay focused on what's most important. Be obsessed with your problems, with your challenge, with your organization. And then you're going to be able to see iterative improvements along the way. And one of the biggest problems, Matt, is a year ago, 7 times a week I'd get solicited to. It's now 7 times a day. And the thing is that, and that's great, I want more solutions. The problem is you also have to weigh organizational change management. And that's the largest challenge we all have. Whether you're in construction or any other industry in the world, organizational change management is the hardest challenge that we all face. And the amount of training, the investment in that change is significant. So when a point solution comes and says, I can do this 2x better, well, that might not be enough now because we just rolled a significant investment around changing to that one thing that was better than the old. So it's taking that into account. And I'm really talking to some of the vendors in the room because I want to help you, but it can't just be that this is going to be 1x better anymore. 10 years ago, that's all it needed to be was, hey, we can do this twice as good. Now you have to recognize that we've been going through the first 13 years of a 30-year digital transformation, and we've been putting heavy investment in training, in org change. And now our people are getting change fatigue. And there's this, we have it at RO. We're trying to be a culture of change. Change is inevitable. It's going to happen. Be comfortable with it. You can preach that all you want, but as human beings, change is hard. It's hard. So we're having to be very ruthless about prioritizing where do we put that investment to change. And that's a challenge whenever you have all these awesome new capabilities that are sitting out in front of you. So that's one of the biggest challenges is saying no. So that you can say yes to what solves the greatest problem in your organization.
I think piggybacking on that and what Aaron was saying about integration, that's really where I think if we take this back to kind of, if you define your culture and you let your culture start to almost define a bias of technology preference that they have, your culture can almost become a guiding kind of, light in terms of you have all of this potential SaaS application you can be using and all this potential hardware technologies you can be using. What gives? Like, where do you weight things being good versus not as good as another solution? So I love the reference of, the worst thing for one good idea is 5 other good ideas. You need a culture that says, you know what, we really like, this particular cloud platform for our integration strategy. We like that. You just narrowed off like 2,000 options that are going to happen in your future for cloud preference. And if you take that back to how you operate, if you're using Microsoft versus if you're using Google, you've got a whole nother swath of things that you can start just wiping out of your future. Of like, nope, we've got a strategy where we're really into Microsoft Teams. We like Teams integrations. We like our data pipeline that goes back to Power BI. If you just have those ideas, they can be high level, but you need a culture of people that says, we like this. Yes. It's a big decision. And you need to let them know how big of a decision it is when you show, okay, listen, there are 4,000 other ways we can do that. So pick that preference and pick it very carefully. But I think that's a huge thing because that's something that your culture can continually revisit every year, talk about the other options out there. And then if you want to do a really big platform shift, it's huge. It will take years and you're going to do it very, very carefully. And you're going to have one project move at a time. But that's the way you're going to effectively kind of think about those types of things and have your company just be aware of it. So I think it's a phenomenal point talking about data integration. It's definitely the number one thing from a strategy point of view that I always worry about. It's like, how are we going to make that dashboard? You've got 50 different tools, all in different data formats, 3D models with different 3D kernel files. Like, how are we going to do it? Like, you need to actually create software to just solve the problem that you've given yourself. So there's things like that I think are huge that often just go overlooked.
One thing real quick, we'll keep talking too, but I did not point out, those of you that have an agenda in hand, there is a QR code. If during panels you want to submit any questions, you're welcome to scan that and send them in. We're going to keep talking for a minute, and then I'm going to look at a couple questions that we do have coming in. You guys have some time to still submit a few.
I think it's also important to, if you've ever seen the innovation adoption curve or the tech adoption curve, it's also important to know you as the company where you want to focus your research and your innovation on that curve, but then also your customer where they are presently on that curve. I came from a DoD research and development lab where it was perfectly acceptable to fail, and we were dealing with cutting edge stuff that hadn't been released and was super beta version, right? But now at AWS, I focus on a little bit different area. And so I think it's important to know, should you be innovating, kind of like in which domain should you be innovating? Which domain are your customers comfortable in as well? Because like you were saying, there's so much tech out there. And, coming from AWS, we've got, a gazillion partners and a gazillion customers coming to us every day. We've got the buying power to buy all this tech as well. And so, what tech should I be investing in for my group? And, Does it need to be a little bit more on the mature side, or can it be on the beta version side? Like, we need to be able to know that and communicate that to our innovation teams.
We of course battle the tech stack conversation, right? I think our entire industry, I think we can all relate. We have too much software, none of it talks to each other, and we all strive for this single source of truth that I don't know ever is really ever going to exist. So I think that's a challenge that we can all kind of relate to. A challenge that we had, coming from, Gilbane, we're, a very large organization. We do $7 billion in revenue. We have 3,500 employees, 50 plus offices, is where we structurally organize for the cultural and the people piece, right? Could our organization actually manage innovation or new ideas? How are we managing this across a very large organization? So what we did, we were very intentional about new positions that our company has either created, went out and seeked, hired. We were kind of joking about some of the job titles that are out there, but they're needed, right? The industry is recognizing that there's these positions that maybe didn't exist 5 or 10 years ago that are integral to our business strategies, today. And, another 5 or 10 years from today, there might be more job opportunities that aren't there. So we really focused on what does our structural organization and our word charting and our reporting structure look like to really foster that culture and ultimately the decision-making process of, hey, we have 5 great ideas, we got to pick one because we have 6 software vendors that all do the same thing, all coming to us, and we know we need the solution. Now we need to make a decision to make sure it integrates. So we really made sure that we were, like I said, structured from organization standpoint to be able to ramp up those decisions.
I'll throw a wrench into the discussion that is fascinating, but what I've been lately thinking about is how we are very effective at blocking data flows within the projects and project teams, because there is the plethora of different apps available and different software available, and it's hard to compare what they do and what's the differentiator factor. So then people just pick and choose what's best for them at that moment in time. But then when thinking about how long the projects that we are building are going to exist and how long the digital building life cycle of those physical buildings is going to last, and how do we actually manage the data security and cybersecurity of those existing buildings when you don't remember or have the logging of how many people had access to the digital replica of that existing building and its systems. That's what's puzzling me at the moment a lot. That I haven't met a lot of organizations that would have the data master plan to really scope out how do they want their data to be delivered, created, managed, accessed, etc. during the project. And then what to do with the data as time goes by, especially when someone has to have access to the digital representation of things. But then do you open the gates or do you manage the gate, or how do you manage the access, and how do you keep track of where it goes in third-party solutions too, now that a lot of software is becoming a platform? So I don't have really good examples or solutions yet, but cybersecurity, data security is now topping everything that I'm thinking about in terms of technology in today's world, and really thinking about what am I actually creating a decade or 20 years from now? What's going to happen if someone gets their hands or eyes on the digital representation, the digital twin or the metaverse of something that I've created, and then handed over the keys to someone that I don't really know?
Mm-hmm. And I love that talking point, actually, because we talk a lot about like quality and the buildings that we create. And that's a selling point. If you're a property developer, it's like, this is a high quality mixed use building that I'm putting in a prime spot in this city, and I love it for all these reasons. What we don't talk a lot about is like, what is the embedded data that has come along with that product? And so more often than not, when you're watching a contractor do a handoff to who's now going to be the property manager for a space, it's still a stack of PDFs, and it's just a folder of folders, and it's not organized, it's not intelligible information. And so I think something about digital twins that I'm quite passionate about is if we do this right, the data value is now adding significant value to that property because it's easier to manage. It can have predicted maintenance. You have permissioning in place to kind of prevent cybersecurity issues from occurring. And you've got a whole technology stack in terms of how everything inside that building is going to operate. We're not quite there yet. I think there's still a big gap in terms of how we're going to make that handover occur. We do not have open data standards that we need to reference when we're doing that. ISO 19650 is something that I'll talk about a little later, but that is something that is just beginning to kind of chip at that iceberg of what we need to actually dive deep into to create new standards for the industry. But that's a huge component. It's just what is the data profile? What is the data schema of the things that we're creating and organizing? Because we have an immense amount of information.
We're going to answer a couple questions as we start narrowing toward the end of our panel. First one would be from small business. So what is some advice that you'd have for a small business with regard to spending time on innovation and learning when small businesses are so dependent on their billable hours? So how does a small business start this process?
Start small. Start small. Do not bite off more than you can chew. Go back to that question. By the way, I didn't invent this question. There's a great book called The 4 Disciplines of Execution, 4DX. I've used it as a Bible in my career. And that's where that question is posed by Covey is if everything remains the same, what's the one thing that would have the largest impact on your business, on your company? I have other CIOs ask me, hey, can we see your innovation roadmap? My innovation roadmap is my company roadmap. Yours should be too. You shouldn't have 2 roadmaps. The whole reason we exist, any of you, the innovative leaders in the company, is for your business, right? So look at the problem that your business needs to solve, and it's going to be unique to your business. And don't try to solve 3. The best advice I can give you, and this comes from years of painful failures and lessons, is focus on that one thing. There's another great reference is John Cotter's 8 Steps for Change. I highly recommend it. I promise you, if you follow those 8 steps, there's a Harvard Business Review article on it. It's another Bible of mine. The first 2 steps are most important. You know what the first one is? Create a sense of urgency. If there's not a sense of urgency in your organization to make a change around that, especially at the top in the leadership, well, then it's going to be really tough to make that change. But if there is that common alignment, and it doesn't have to be aligned across the whole company, but it needs to be aligned where it matters. It needs to be aligned in your leadership that, yes, this is something that we need to change for the benefit of our org. The second is build a guiding coalition. You can't do it alone. You have to have community. You have to have others saying, we can do this together. We can find a way. And then I'll let you look up the other 6 steps. But I would start there. Start with answering that question. Start small and make sure that you're obsessed with the problem, not all these amazing solutions. I love these solutions, but don't obsess around the solution, obsess around the problem, and that'll keep you on the right track.
I actually want to throw one thing out. So another thing that gets talked about a lot is what is success, right?
Yeah.
And so if it's coming from a small business, what are your goals? Is your goal to grow and scale and become a monster business and you have to have the latest tech or are you a small business because you want to be small and can you continue without making huge changes? So starting with again,
define and align.
Yeah. What is your goal?
And align.
Yep.
If you're not aligned on what you're trying to achieve, then you're not going to make the right decisions around innovation.
Yep, absolutely.
I would just say to you, you don't have to do it alone as a small company. Aaron and I are both here representing consultancies that help out small companies. And so just, start with that question, what do you want to achieve? And then go get external help. You do not have to become an expert of any of this stuff. There are tons of us experts out here helping out companies like that. So you don't have to do it alone.
Yeah, I conclude partnerships that there are other small companies that are trying to grow or do things. So being in step with them, it enables you to grow or keep up with what's new and what's happening, but also enabling and leveling up those that are trying to grow as well. So not creating a bubble for yourself and trying to do everything yourself and being the best at everything yourself. You just become a out there solution, but partnerships that will enable a lot more influence and impact to happen.
Love it. For time's sake, we'll jump to a couple more. This one's big, I think, across a lot of industries. So my industry has a cybersecurity concern with utilizing the cloud. Do you deal with keeping stuff local or using cloud, or how do you overcome some of those challenges as far as data?
It's my least favorite and most talked about topic. I mean, cybersecurity is one of those things that if you don't understand it, it's going to be a long road till you feel comfortable in terms of like talking about what's right or not right. If your organization has a bias against cloud technology, I would encourage them to read how the Patriot Act operates in the cybersecurity arena. Regardless of where you are in the world, America can command your data to come back. And if it's on AWS, AWS will be compliant. So it's not one of those things that I think you need to worry about that much. If you have government mandates, like if you're in Canada, they often say things like the data needs to reside on Canadian soil. AWS has Canadian data centers. Like you can solve most cloud problems in 2023. 2015, I think it was a little bit more of like a nuance, but the way it is today, like it's very solvable and you shouldn't be afraid of cloud tech.
I don't even have to respond. That was
good job.
Great. Well solved.
Perfect. Okay, we'll go to another one. Can you talk about how you choose, how much time you allot to innovation and R&D in your organization? This is critical, and it's kind of a gray area that a lot of companies struggle with.
More time. We need more time.
Just
more
more
quiet time. That's what I'm saying.
Totally agree. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, I want to share the air, but I do have an answer.
I would say whatever you think it's going to be, triple it. I'm not joking. Like we underestimated a lot of what it was going to take to do kind of our digital transformation, if you would, leveraging like drones and laser scan and all that. And it was, I think we started with some low-hanging fruit and thought we were on our way. And then next thing you know, it came to post-processing and data architecture. And there's just so many things that we took for granted that we had no clue what we were doing that would slow us down. And then that built a case for the non-believers. All the ones that said, I told you, we shouldn't have done that. That's why we need to keep doing it the way we've been doing it for 30 years. And ultimately, we had to get them on board. And once they got on board, and that was communication, was what I was going to say for a small business, I'd say get your stakeholders on board early, communicate what you're trying to do, and make sure they understand the end result, because there's going to be a wiggly line to get there. And as surveyors, we like that straight line to get there. It's not going to be that way. So however long you think it's going to take, triple it and make sure all your stakeholders are on board.
I'll throw out there as well. So it can be very simple. And I think earlier on we said, yeah, there's so many roles and titles out there now. So some organizations, if they have the resources, they'll have those dedicated innovation team members that are 100% dedicated to it. But for the rest of everybody else, again, I kind of go back to the once a month, an hour-long virtual coffee just to get the same like-minded people around the table talking. Better if it's in person if you can, but it can be just that simple. Pick an hour a month dedicated to innovation, just get the conversation started. So that's one easy way to kind of check that box to giving some time back.
The other thing that was tough for us is, we're service, so we try to make money, and every time we're working on projects. And for innovation, you have to have meetings to have meetings. Like you have to plan to innovate. And that was new for our staff because they're billable. They want to be working on projects. They want to be servicing the client. And we're like, stop all that. We need to talk about innovation. We need to talk about change. And they're like, well, how's that work? How am I supposed to not do my job? I'm a surveyor. I'm a CAD tech. I'm a project manager. How am I going to build my time to that? And that'll come later. You need to focus. We need to talk about this now. So there was a lot of meeting fatigue, and that was tough for a service business to make that transition to even say, let's talk about the change, let's make sure we're planning for the change, and then executing and then debriefing what's working with that change. So there was meetings upon meetings, and that was tough.
I would bet most people in this room would love a corporate R&D budget. I would also say most people in this room probably don't have them. I would say that neither do I, right? So like finding dedicated time or money, yeah, it's a constant challenge. And coming from a construction company, everything is time and money in our world. And yeah, I wish I had a corporate budget that I could just go say I need $10,000 to go buy a new scanner or new software. It doesn't exist. So I think, people that are interested or passionate about it, they're going to find the time. Not saying that's the right way of doing it, but it seems to be the way that we're doing it now, right or wrong, until we get that corporate budget, which I think, we're trending towards, and I think is going to come one day, but we're not quite at that point yet.
All right, let's do 2 more, and then we got to wrap up. 1, so how have you creatively educated decision makers in your company without overwhelming them? So from somebody who's maybe lower in the company or mid-level and they want to be that driver, how do they go about, if it's not coming from the top yet or you need to convince them, how do we take steps there?
I'll share how I did it when I was earlier in my career. I was afraid of public speaking, and I had anxiety of meeting with executives when I was younger. But then I decided that if I can come up with an elevator pitch, then all I have to do is survive for the 15 seconds or 30 seconds. And then I would keep an eye on when the CEO of the company would be in line for the elevator, and then just kind of jump on board and use that 15 seconds to 30 seconds to pitch an idea. It would be only one idea at a time. But in just a matter of weeks, I was getting an hour-long one-on-one discussion to talk about innovation and ideas that I had. I was terrified, but it was only about the 15 seconds to start off with. And if I could stay alive for 15 seconds and say something that I had pre-rehearsed, like a keyword on my mind that just say this word, that's how I got in.
That's awesome.
Find a coalition. I'm telling you, get a teammate, find a superintendent, find someone who has some passion. And you asked, how do you define success? Success is nothing more than the accumulation of progress. Think about it. What is success? It's nothing more than looking over our shoulder and saying we were there and now we're here. So all you have to do if you're starting small at that mid layer is take what you do have, go and get that audience. I remember standing in front of the executive council at RO in 2012 and said, we need to buy iPads for everyone in operations. They looked at me like I was insane. I did not get approval that day. What I got approval for was for one project with 10 iPads. And then I went out there and I busted my butt on making them successful with those 10 iPads. And then I went asked for 2 more projects and then 3. So think of it in bite-sized incremental progress that you can point to. If you can't point to it, you're just preaching an idea. And ideas, I'm sorry to tell you, are not worth anything. You have to take the idea and you have to create it into tangible progress that you can point to. And I promise you, if you can point to something, no matter how small, that's going to give you the ability to get more buy-in.
That pulls back into the concept of you can't manage what you can't measure. So I've always found it helpful, understand exactly what you're measuring before you go into seeing if something's a good idea or not, and have that ROI in hand and ready to go. So have it succinct and a summary, an easy pitch to understand for leadership to say, oh, I didn't realize by becoming tripod whomever, I'm going to save 5 hours a week on project engineers' time, and now they can better allocate that time for much more strategic and important tasks. Then it makes a lot of sense. Yeah, we're going to totally be more efficient. We're going to be able to focus on actually building the project instead of literally just running around taking manual photos. I did that as my first intern duty. I'm so glad engineers these days don't have to do that. But having that data, that ROI to basically say, here's what we measured, here's how we can manage this moving forward, here's the improvement, that really communicates the vision of what's possible to the concept that you have.
It's also important to have a good mentor. I think I've been incredibly blessed in my career to have very strong, good mentors. And I mean, it's those mentors who are going to tell you, get up in front of the executive board and come up with a 15-second pitch and stand in the elevator and have your ROI on hand and ready to quote it. And it's oftentimes where, as if you're a junior employee, let's just say, you can't get in front of that executive board, but it's that mentor that's going to bring you up. And I feel like that, for me, has helped my career more than anything, is to have that good mentor. My boss is in the audience. Yes, I just have to say that again.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys for being up here and sharing from your perspectives, from your experience. I think that's what's exciting really to me most about this community that's growing is the fact that you can find people to connect with that are on a similar path as you, that have similar interests, that are passionate about innovation in whole or technology and you know, over the last several years before starting RCN, it was like I would go out to conferences and it'd be a struggle to find someone that I really connected with. And so I feel like the community that's really starting to grow here is all of those people. And so what I want to see grow, and we'll get into that more tomorrow in our roadmap, is like, how do we keep this going more than just like come talk about it once a year? How can we actually create maybe mentorships, or how can we build the community where we're staying together in contact and working on these things together to continue improving? So as we wrap up, I'll let you have, now that we've talked a lot, that we've answered a lot of questions, just any last things you want to leave with the audience as we wrap up?
I have one idea. Stop being followers. Become leaders. Don't follow what someone else has already done and then try to repeat it. Invent something completely new and just go for it.
Love it.
Yeah, I love that. The thing that I would throw in there is just be fearless too. You can ask yourself what if forever in terms of like, should you do something or not? And it might not work. But just have a sense of fearlessness that you're doing the best you can. And sometimes when you find out that something doesn't work, you don't have to call that a failure. You can treat it like a science problem. And it's just, hey, I had a hypothesis and now I know this one way does not work. So just be fearless and keep building on that, because eventually you're going to be quite the expert in whatever niche you've been discovering.
I would say definitely practice what you want to become. None of this you're just going to be good at. You want to be better at innovation? Remember, innovation is an output. Focus on learning. Be curious. Be courageous. Partner up with others that are like-minded. They're here. Build a coalition. Discover together. Be obsessed with learning. Those are all the inputs, and you watch. You'll start being able to look over that shoulder and see progress. But remember, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together.
I'll throw out there, listen, care, and collaborate. So I'll leave it at that.
Simple and concise. All right. Well, thank you guys very much. Give a hand to our first panel, and we'll be rolling into our first presentation. So thank you.